Okay, I think that is good. We've got a good amount of people on. Hopefully more will keep trickling in as we get into it, but let's go for it. So yeah, good morning, good afternoon, whichever side of the Atlantic you're on. Welcome to HowGood session on fueling bottom line growth with a small sustainability team. My name is Sam Webster, Director of Growth and Innovation here at HowGood. I'm based out of Madrid in Spain, looking after the European market. We've got some amazing guests on today. We'll go through and we're going to meet all of them individually and hear about their amazing stories. But in no particular order, we've got Brian Nash joining us from Ingredion, the VP of Corporate Sustainability. We have Christy Heimer, who's the VP of Communications and Impact and Partnerships for Tractor Beverage Co. And we have Sandrea Elam, who's the Senior Procurement and Sustainability Strategy Manager at Red Gold. Last but very much not least, we have my dear friend Kate Batty from the Growth and Innovation team here at HowGood too, based in New York. So looking after the US market, particularly in the kind of consumer brands, manufacturers as well. So a little bit of kind of housekeeping whilst we get into it. Please feel free to enter any questions that come up into the chat. We've got a Q&A section reserved for the end. And if you want to ask HowGood team questions or specific questions for any of our guest speakers, ping them in there and we'll get to them at the end. I'm going to kick off with a little bit of a kind of intro into what we're seeing in the market and some potential challenges and opportunities for sustainability teams right now. Before launching into the real meat of the conversation, why you're all here, I'm guessing, is to hear about these brand stories, gain some inspiration, and really hear how each of these businesses have tackled a challenge in order to drive value and growth at their business. We'll then summarize a few key takeaways, hopefully maybe to get some conversations going internally. And then, yeah, that Q&A piece here too. Okay, let's dive into it. So this session is not going to be about regulation or politics. It would be remiss to not acknowledge the quite uncertain global situation that's happening right now, or over the last few months at least. Market volatility and political kind of uncertainty, particularly in the US and in Europe, has definitely led to some businesses taking pause, maybe a short-term realignment of internal strategy whilst people see what pans out. As markets and investors react to kind of the ongoing tariff announcements, we've seen very unstable and volatile markets globally. This graph here was, just a week ago. We have also seen, particularly in Europe, the kind of relaxing and pushing of the scope for the CSRD. What we're hearing day to day are some businesses taking stock and kind of seeing where to go next. What are next steps? Or really, where can I, as a business, harness the momentum that I've maybe gathered already, and maybe I had laid out some plans to report in next year, whenever their scope was. Or maybe they've already made some investments or carved out budget for internal or external support. And what we're kind of seeing is, right, what's the next step? Where do I focus my energy moving forward? On top of this, never more than now has it been apparent that political and climate-related risks to supply chains is an unavoidable concern, as is for many brands and many consumer-facing companies, a bit of a rise in greenwashing accusations and a bit of a move to the strategy of green hushing. Now, this all could potentially be read as being quite bleak. However, that's what we're here to do. It is the purpose of this session, is to focus on how three key businesses have, adjusted and ridden the short-term pressures, external pressures, by focusing on key truths that will lead and can, really guide an internal strategy in order to focus on that kind of beacon in the horizon and communicate business identity in order to drive growth. Now, what are these truths? One, we've identified 3 to focus on for this session. Downstream reporting requests from retail partners, etc., is increasing and is only going to increase. This amazing stat that just over a third of the global economy have set science-based targets. Now, the knock-on effect of this is we're going to see an increasing amount of requests coming from your downstream partners relying on your suppliers' accurate primary data. They need this data in order to hit those reduction targets, and it's kind of setting off a bit of a cascading domino effect where the further upstream you get, the farmers, the suppliers, the brands are having to deal with a real kind of mounting number of these requests for sustainability and product information. Now, these requests come in all shapes and sizes. They can come sporadically, and they might be looking for different scopes of information, and it can really keep people on their toes, to say the least. Along with this, we have the permanence of consumer demand. Consumers are seeking more sustainable brands, particularly when you're looking at millennials and Gen Z shoppers in comparison to maybe previous generations. You can see here the stat that these 2 generations are twice as likely to purchase sustainable products. Now, what this means is that it comes with a higher scrutiny and a higher higher impetus to have really clarified and verifiable data behind any claims that you're making. Claims that are made in a slightly unfair or ambiguous way will be questioned and will be challenged. And we're seeing that those that get it right, that can address this consumer demand and communicate their brand story, what they're seeing is they're achieving, real brand loyalty and a real surge in brand image as well. Now, looking a little bit more internally, what we've seen, more and more CFOs are looking to invest in sustainability and make more sustainable investments. Now, these stats here are from a Kearney report, which was released at the end of last year. And now across 92% of the CFOs that were surveyed, across there were thousands who were surveyed, 92% of those that were surveyed responded they're more likely to invest in sustainability. Now, what these investments are shaping up to look like, it's looking at the supply chain resilience piece. More than ever, really locking in to assuring your supply chain and creating a more resilient supply chain in adverse nature of facing climate risks or any kind of uncertain political situation. It could be looking at, more sourcing options or logistical efficiencies just to kind of cut down any potential supply chain disruptions. That's one way to go. What we're also seeing is businesses going really to the root of the supply chain, going to the farmers and looking to invest in supporting farmers to look at how the ingredients or the products are being grown. And it's really the understanding of that on-farm impact as to where businesses are noticing this is where we can see real kind of fruit and return on our investment for starting at the farm and bringing those suppliers on those journeys in order to create long-term partnerships and create kind of collaborative reduction strategies. And also for, all of us here who are in the food and bev industry, for businesses like us who are so tied to the soil, creating more resilient food systems and more protection there is key. So I got a bit eager there. So this all looks quite good. These are some lovely little truths, despite all the external negatives and some potential scary wider world situation. There are 3 key things that we can focus on and we can harness and we can use as drivers for us in sustainability to move forward. So what's the problem, I hear you say? But we come across one problem time and time again when speaking to sustainability teams. Kate, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sam. So while we know there is this truth that sustainability will continue to be a long-term priority for organizations, another truth is that sustainability teams more often than not are really strapped for resources and time. We know that they spend 75% of their time gathering data and completing day-to-day tasks that leave little time for strategizing and taking action on their reduction strategy. Some of those challenges include things like managing their sustainability data across decentralized data sources, navigating verifiable sustainability claims and how to bring these to market, and quantifying the ROI of their sustainability initiatives to make the case to stakeholders for further investments. So these competing priorities really take away, right, from their team's ability to pursue meaningful reductions for their team and organization. Next slide, please. So we're going to focus on 3 of these challenges today and walk through some tangible solutions. The first challenge we'll walk through is how to navigate downstream reporting requests, with Sandrea from Red Gold talking through how she was able to use automated reporting to save significant resources for Red Gold. The second challenge we'll focus on is the tension that brands have of wanting to leverage sustainability claims, but being worried about greenwashing. And Christy from Tractor will discuss how they align their metrics to industry standards to communicate their brand story with confidence. And the third challenge is how teams can effectively manage shifting priorities, with Brian from Ingredion talking through how their team stayed agile to navigate these changes, as well as shifting external factors that were impacting their efforts. Next slide, please. So with that, we'll start with Sandrea at Red Gold. Sandrea, thank you so much for being with us today. I will pass it over to you to walk through how Red Gold was able to effectively respond to downstream reporting requests.
Thank you, Kate. As Kate said, my name is Sandrea Elam. I'm with Red Gold. For those of you that might not know, we are the largest privately owned, family-owned tomato processor in the U.S. While we do produce a lot of private label products, we're still, as far as people, a very small company. So I work at Red Gold as their packaging procurement person, and they felt the proper place to put sustainability to start would be in packaging procurement. So my second job, I laugh, is sustainability. So I was on this journey with the ownership here. We have a lot of large customers that ask the same question, just in very different ways oftentimes. So we didn't have a platform. I was putting things in spreadsheets and, trying to keep track of what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and then also be able to report data to our customers on greenhouse gases and our processes down to the farm level. When we looked at it, what people were asking for us to do, we thought, this is stuff that we've always done. We've just never written it down. We've done it because it's the right thing to do. But now we needed to capture all of that data in one place and be able to report it properly and consistently. So I did a lot of research, did a lot of presenting to our owners, and we decided that HowGood was the best choice for us. And in hindsight, yes, it was very definitely the right choice for us. We've been with HowGood just under a year, and we are now able to report our scopes 1, 2, and 3. We're working on our next steps for science-based target initiatives. And it's been huge for us. I spent more than half my time. I was before HowGood, I was 75-hour weeks trying to get things done, and it has I backed down to 50 hours or less. So it's been a huge game changer for me. Allowed me to focus on some other things, and some things maybe that we weren't able to see until we began working with HowGood and were able to be so granular. That's probably one of the greatest things I've come across with HowGood is how granular that the reporting data is, and it's allowed us to understand some things that we thought we didn't think of before, honestly, and allowed us to focus and maybe make some changes and go some directions that we didn't realize that we could go and would be helpful in our sustainability journey. Again, the biggest is our consistency now on customer audit reports and honestly, our farmers have been able to use some of this data and information to help them. We work with just the family farmers, multi-generational family farmers who are doing what's best, you know, because and want to do what's best because that's their legacy to their children and grandchildren. So yeah, it's been quite an amazing journey with HowGood, and our ownership is thrilled with the results, and again, I get my weekends back. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. You're making us blush. That's very, very nice words. I think, you know, we wanted to highlight, we do see this story time and time again of potentially one person sustainability teams or sustainability teams added on to other functions, as you just mentioned there. So we appreciate everything you do. You know, the sustainability superstars that are out there. Thank you. We appreciate you. And, you know, doing amazing work. And I think this leads us very nicely on to our next guest, who also fills that role of being a one-person sustainability band. So we're going to introduce you to Christy from Tractor. Christy, thank you so much for being with us today. Now I know you're going to be talking about really how do we communicate and how do you, communicate your true brand story through relying on data. So over to you, Christy.
Thanks, Sam. And
Thanks.
hey, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be part of this conversation and especially grateful to the team at HowGood. You guys have been incredible partners from day one. Quick shout out to Joao and Victoria, and also to my Tractor colleague, Danielle Surup, who's been an incredible partner in this work for the past 3 years. As you mentioned, we're a small team. 3 years ago, I think there were probably 30 employees at Tractor. Today, there's close to 90, so we're growing fast, and that's what makes this work so important. But for anyone who's new to Tractor, we don't make tractors. We make certified organic, non-GMO drinks exclusively for food service. So you're not going to find us on retail shelves. We're poured in restaurants. You may have seen our bubblers in Chipotle restaurants, campus cafes, fast casual spots, corporate dining halls. Our drinks are made with real ingredients from real farms, and our goal is to help make food service a more regenerative part of the food system. And I can't stress this enough, at the heart of our work is a deep belief in soil. We like to say that we want people to fall in love with soil again, to remember that what happens underground shapes everything above ground. And that's why we care so much about sourcing organically, how our ingredients are grown, who grows them, and what kind of future we're all cultivating together. And from the beginning, our goal was to quantify the impact of sourcing organic, not just to validate what we believed internally, but to help our pouring partners, that's what we call the folks that pour our drinks, bring that story to life for their guests. And we needed a tool that could turn those values into real numbers. And that vision, so again, we've been in this work for about 3 years. That vision was championed from the top by our CEO, Kevin Sherman, and our co-founders, Justin Schneer and Griffin Barkley. They really started the conversation with HowGood. we, our founder, Travis Potter, is an organic farmer and deeply committed to making sure that farmers who are the true stewards of soil can thrive in a system that often works against them. So they've always believed that we shouldn't just talk about values, we should back them up with action and data. So we think really intentionally about the partnerships we form. We look for people who lead with integrity, shared purpose. That's how we found HowGood, through our friends at Chipotle, actually, who have a similar metric system. They saw how aligned we were and said, you really need to talk to the folks at HowGood. I also want to recognize Carrie, our sourcing partners. They've helped us scale organic sourcing. And so this has really been a three-way collaboration from the start. So before we created the Organic Impact Tracker, we were wrestling with something a lot of purpose-driven brands struggle with, and that's the fear of greenwashing. We knew we were making better choices, but we didn't have a great way to prove it. We definitely don't have an in-house analytics team, and we needed a partner who could help us measure real-world impact of sourcing organic clearly, credibly, and consistently. So partnering with HowGood was really the unlock. Their platform helped us move beyond generalizations and actually back up our sustainability story with real specific data. And it helped us shift from storytelling to story showing. And that really changed everything. Sam, if you could just slip to the next slide. So together we built the Organic Impact Tracker. It uses 5 core metrics to show the benefit of choosing organic over conventional. So you'll see that, if you can, on the bottom here, those icons: organic land supported, water saved, carbon emissions avoided, improved soil health, and then a proprietary metric that we're really proud of that was developed by an agronomist that works closely with us, and that is synthetic pesticides avoided. And Tractor is the only company in food service tracking this. It's something we care deeply about because it connects to long-term soil vitality. And essentially, the tracker gives us a way to measure what matters, not just for ourselves, but for those pouring partners. We work closely with them, sometimes with their marketing teams, sometimes with their sustainability leads for impact reporting to calculate and customize their impact. So whether it's translating gallons of water saved into something visual for a menu board, or in a college campus dining area to show how our soil saved. But in any case, we're able to help customize and help them tell a story that feels specific and aligned with their values. And that part has been especially rewarding because it means our impact doesn't stop with us, it scales. It becomes something guests can see and feel in the moment they make their beverage choice. And it also becomes an incredible internal tool. Every single person on our team at Tractor is fluent in Organic Impact Tracker language. We've invested in education across the board. It's part of our onboarding process because it starts within. So our folks are championing and advocating for our brand values daily. So they need to be able to tell that story. And we want everyone at Tractor to understand not just what we do, but why it matters. And so it's been a journey. We launched the Tractor with HowGood at Expo West, I believe. Joao, you can check me on this, but I think it was 2 years ago. This past summer, we brought it to Farm Aid Festival, and people lined up to see how their drink choices added up. They actually announced from the festival stage what the impact of our drinks was that day. And then just last summer, we submitted Organic Impact Tracker together with HowGood to Fast Company's World Changing Ideas Awards, and we won. So from a business perspective, it's become a real differentiator. Our sales team leads with it. Our partners love having something tangible to talk about, and it's helping us grow in a way that feels really aligned with our values. And for me, that's what real progress looks like. And it's been possible because of this partnership. Again, I can't stress enough, I mean, small team of now 1, also managing as Andrea mentioned, other things, communications, both internal and external, partnerships. But this partnership, the folks at HowGood are literally an extension of our team. And their shared values and that belief that we really should leave things better than we found them is, permeates everything that we do. My slides have been a little sparse, but I hope you all will check out the Organic Impact Tracker for yourself at drinktractor.com. Would love to hear what it sparks for you. You'll see the calculator you can play with to see how your individual cup of Tractor impacts the world, or if you're a food service world person, it'll help you understand on the case side. But thanks again. Any questions? I look forward to fielding them.
Awesome, Christy. Thank you so much. I can't recommend the calculator more. It's a lot of fun. I spend a lot of time on the website. It's a great tool. And yeah, I love that from, storytelling to story sharing. I think it's such a really key element of what we're seeing in successful communication. I did want to take this moment to just reference for anyone in the EU, anyone operating in the EU and the UK on the call, anyone looking to make consumer-facing claims with the Green Claims Code in the UK and the ongoing Green Claims Directive in the EU. We're hearing that these can be almost seen as quite intimidating and aggressive acts, however, potentially leading to a bit of green hushing going on. We really want to help anyone who would like to discuss or explore making claims in line with these directives, and they are really just a clear guidance on how to make a fair, verifiable claim. And I think, as we've seen through the Tractor example here, it really, the basis of this claim, making any successful claims, it is data. So if anyone on the call wants to discuss consumer-facing or B2B claims or anything of that sort, if you're in the US, reach out to Kate and to myself in the EU and the UK as well. Christy, thank you so much. Always a great story and love having you on. Thank you. So now we're going to hand over to Brian from Ingredion, and we're going to be talking about how to sail the stormy seas of the changing sustainability landscape. So Brian, over to you. I'll move the slides when you're ready. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah. Next, go ahead. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. I'll and then the next one after that. So I will share with everybody here something that I shared with our board. I was presenting on sustainability to our board of directors, and I said, listen, I'm going to talk for 20 minutes, but if you don't remember anything else, remember this: get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So when Sam said sailing the stormy seas, I will tell you this: sustainability is evolving faster than it has over the course of my career. Just so you guys know, Ingredion's a B2B Fortune 500 ingredient solutions company. We sell into the food and beverage space. And I've been with the company for 20 years. I've been in sustainability for 18 years. Year one was the year where I thought every day they would show up and tell me, we don't need sustainability anymore. We don't really know what you do. And now it's to more like Sundrea, right? Like 75-hour weeks, and the phone never stops ringing. And so I remember the days when I wasn't sure if I'd have a job the next day. So I'll take the good with the bad, right? At least there's demand. And we've grown our sustainability team to meet that demand. So for most of my career, I've been a one-person operation, but we've added more people. And I've folded in some of our regional sustainability people under me. So I'm fortunate in that my team over the last year and a half has grown significantly. But again, so has that demand, which is being shaped by a lot by our customers. And our customers are being shaped by either retailer demand or rising consumer interest, which Sam talked about earlier. But what I'll also comment on is that we're seeing the need to differentiate as adding complexity to all this. So if I could get all my customers to just pick one standard for sustainable agriculture, one standard for human rights, if I could just get them all to agree on everything, it would save me so much time but I think that they're seeing this value in telling their story and it being a differentiated story, which means that we get, we don't get one request for sustainable agriculture. We get, 12 slightly different requests for sustainable agriculture. Add on top of that regulations. The EU obviously is still surging ahead with a lot of regulations, although we're seeing maybe a little bit of setback, on our side of the pond. And then investor pressure. I would say that hasn't gone away. We saw a surge during the pandemic, particularly when financial guidance was being canceled. But I would say I still talk a lot to investors who want to know about sustainability. And so how do you lead a team where there is constantly shifting priorities from your customer base and constantly growing and changing complexity? And I think there's a couple of things that feed into that. One is you need tools to help you be agile. And two, maybe this is chicken and egg. I don't know which one comes first. You have to be able to demonstrate ROI on sustainability so that somebody will give you the money to buy the tools. So if we go to the next slide, Sam. Yeah, so there's this constant need for us to have a quicker way to help navigate the complexity. And I mean, I could talk to you a lot about the tools. Obviously, we use Lattice and HowGood is one of the really big things that helps us navigate, but we have other tools as well. But an example I'll give you of why there's complexity and why we rely so much on HowGood and Lattice is stevia sourcing requests. So Ingredion owns Pure Circle, which is, I believe, the largest, if not, it's one of the largest stevia producers in the world. And we had a customer come to us, a beverage customer, and said, I want low carbon footprint stevia. And we said, you're just worried about the carbon footprint? And they said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, the lowest carbon footprint stevia in the world, or the stevia with the highest yields, and therefore the lowest carbon footprint, comes out of the Xinjiang province. And as soon as I said that, they said no. And for those of you who don't know, it's a province that's got a lot of allegations and issues around forced labor. And they said, we don't want to touch anything out of that province. And I said, okay, so you don't want the lowest carbon footprint stevia. You want the lowest carbon footprint ethically sourced stevia. And they said, yes, that's what we want. So that's a very simple example. I could spend all day telling you other examples that are significantly more complex. And so we find that tools like life cycle assessments, traditionally doing an LCA, especially if it's ISO validated, could take 10 to 12 months. It's very expensive, but it only gives us that environmental piece. It doesn't give us the animal welfare or the soil health or the human rights or the labor impact. And that is all part of information that we need to help bring value to our customer. So how are we actually using the Lattice platform? When we partnered with HowGood back in 2022, I think, we had one goal, right? Which was to be able to assess new product development. We have an internal target of aligning our new product development with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We see this not as altruistic, but we see it as where growth is going in the industry. And HowGood has been a great partner in helping us take our internal tool and building it into the Lattice platform. So now you guys see the chart here with the stoplight grade. We can do that same thing with UN SDGs. We click a button and it shows us the SDGs that have been mapped out in Lattice. And it's really fantastic. But so that's where we started. That was our intention with the tool. And I would say that is probably on the softer side of how we use it now. We do a lot. My key customers internally, my key stakeholders internally are marketing and go-to-market. They're the ones I get the most requests from. Can you pull this from HowGood? Can you do this from HowGood? So we're looking a lot at customer formulation evaluation. So a customer wants to reformulate for affordability or something else, or they want to change texture, and we can help them evaluate any kind of message that goes along with that. Positive message on the sustainability side. We're finding that marketing is putting more of that information, actually having data to tell a story. So I think we did a hybrid at IFT where we produced a cheese cracker, and we made it from pea protein instead of whey protein that it was traditionally made with. And we're able to show that it was, don't quote me exactly on this. I'm trying to remember what the numbers were, but I think it was a 6% reduction in blue water usage and a 47% reduction in carbon footprint versus the whey protein formulation. And we were able to pull that information out of HowGood. But I remember being able to demonstrate to people that what you're eating not only tastes better, but it has a really positive impact on reducing the environmental footprint. And so we do a lot with marketing and using information out of that. And then I've actually had our procurement team call me up and say, hey, we're looking at sourcing a crop. We've got 3 places that we think would work. Can you look them up in HowGood and tell us which one has the best sustainability story? Because we can pick any of them. And I'm not really even sure how procurement got wind of HowGood or Lattice, but we did. We looked it up and we gave them the information, and that helped inform the purchasing decision. So how do we use that, or how do we demonstrate ROI with that? So we've got tools. They help us be agile. I mean, if procurement had called me up, before we were using HowGood and asked that question, it would have involved deploying my team or myself and doing a lot of research, and we would have given them an answer in a month, right? And it would have been speculative. I think we gave them an answer in 10 minutes, right? Or less. I think more of it was calling them up and saying, hey, just let me understand your request. We got in the system, we were able. So it's an example of how we can be quick. And so ROI, part of that is we want to always link back to business value, right? So how much time am I spending on a non-value added task versus a value added task? So if you ask my CEO, would you rather I'm doing research on where to source, pick something, peas, right? Or would you rather I'm sitting in front of a customer talking about sustainability? He's going to say, no, I'd rather pay you to sit in front of a customer, or I'd rather pay you to do something more value added than spending all that time trying to gather data, whether that's emissions data or whether that's doing a comparative study of formulations. So that's one way, is making sure that you're valuing your time and how you can get that time focused to more value added tasks. But then I think the other thing is linking sustainability, or what we do, back to sales. So this is a really tricky one, right? My boss is always asking me, how much growth did we generate from sustainability? And what I find is that sustainability is often, almost always, not the sole driver for making a sale. So it gets really touchy to be able to say, well, because of sustainability, we sold whatever, an extra $2 billion worth of product or something. That would be, I would have a hard time validating a number like that in an executive team or in a board meeting. But what we can do is link it to sales. So when we deployed HowGood, we started by going to our most strategic customers globally, right? Because everybody in our boardroom understands those customers, right? So talking about the engagement that we've gotten from those customers helped to validate expending that expense. I'll give you another example, and this one's not to do with HowGood or Lattice. We had a person that was running our human rights program, left for another opportunity, and we had a person internally that we wanted to put in that role. And my boss and our CEO said to me, hey, we're just looking at cost controls at the end of the year. What do you think if we delay this from October to February or March, putting that person in role? And I said, we can do whatever you want. That's fine. But just so you know, we did the math. The person that runs this role also runs our SEDEX and our SMETA program. That is linked to over 400 customers. We're linked to over 400 customers in SEDEX, and that touches on approximately $3 billion worth of business. And we're not keeping up with it because the person's not in the role. So I just want you to have that as a frame of reference. And before I could say anything else, the CEO said, no, just fill it. Like we're trying to be cost smart, but not cost smart at the expense of impacting business. So what I found is that anytime we can put what we're doing or the value we're bringing, if we can link it, I didn't say that we're generating those $3 billion worth of sales, but we are connected to being a satisfier to those $3 billion worth of sales. And so I found that over the course of my career, the more I can link what we're doing in sustainability to that, the more we can demonstrate the ROI, and the more we can get value. And there have been times where there have very directly been cases where we could say, we closed $12 million worth of business in Latin America because of sustainability. So there are a few occasions where we can link a number right to it, and those are great. But more often than not, it's a correlation, right? I'm saying that we're doing this to connect with customers, and those customers represent X amount of business. And I found that, at least in our organization, that's good enough, right? They just need a frame of reference on value to make a good business decision. And with that, Sam, that's the last of my slides, but I'm happy to take any questions when we get to that point.
Brian, awesome. Thank you so much. I think it's, it really kind of tacks into that point of where you can fuel the growth, where you can start to inject your power into the rest of the engine to help drive that thing forward. I think that's it's an awesome story. And I think you nailed those stats, by the way. It's definitely the one of the use cases that we learn here, and I think it was bang on. So good job. So just a quick summarizing thoughts from us before we go into the Q&A. 3 key themes that have really been underlying all the stories we've heard here today. And the first one, it is your data. It is the starting point for anyone looking to create new initiatives or carve out new goals for the team. Start with your data. It's an opportunity now, potentially, if you've got maybe changing priorities or your landscape of goals for the next couple of years has changed. Look into your data, look where you can centralize or kind of streamline any data flows you have, whether it's procurement or sustainability, whatever it might be. This obviously, if you have a good grasp on your data, you can automate, you can save time, as we saw with Red Gold, and you can also become more agile, and you can respond to requests really, leaving more room to strategize and to reduce as well. And a key part of this for businesses in the food industry, it is that scope 3. It's your scope 3 emissions. We often see that 70 to 80% of corporate carbon emissions are taken up by your scope 3. So this is the place to really dial in on, get a granular understanding of that scope 3, and take this forward if it's to SBTI setting or carving out any internal goals. Get on top of your data. And then with that, you can go to your wider team. You can see where this data can start slotting in, as Brian was talking about. How do we, and Christy as well, how do we go to sales? How do we go to procurement? How do we kind of influence and fuel the engine to help push the company forward using this data that we have? So bring in the team. Power in numbers also will support any ROI conversations down the line as well. If it has multiple benefits for multiple teams, any investments you're looking to make can be supported by other teams as well. And the last one here, it's bring your CFO or the equivalent in your business into the conversations early. They can be seen as real catalysts to change by combining kind of that investment strategy with corporate sustainability goals. Creates value for your organization. It really fosters that collaboration piece about bringing people together, and you're obviously looking towards that, by making any sustainable investments into securing up that supply chain and looking into supply chain resilience will be helping to future-proof your business too. So just 3 lasting thoughts from us, summarizing all the wonderful inputs we've had from our amazing guests and trusted partners. So I'm now going to turn it over to Kate, who's going to coordinate the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. And thank you to all 3 of you for these amazing stories. So looking at our Q&A, the first one is from Joao. So how are you thinking about keeping sustainability top of mind for the C-suite at a time of such economic volatility? So this is addressed to Sandrea and Christy, but I think all 3 of you, if you have thoughts, would love to hear from each of you.
I'll jump in quickly. Gosh, this entire initiative has been championed by our C-suite. Our CEO, Kevin Sherman, says the OIT is the most important thing we're doing. So we don't have to convince them. If anything, they're usually leaning in, asking us what the latest stats are. I think it's interesting, the note about the CFO. Our CFO geeks out on the data. He loves it. We have a 10-year goal of eliminating 1,034 tons of synthetic pesticides from the food system by 2033. So he's tracking our revenue forecast against that goal. We share that in our all-team meetings. It's actually, we've figured out a way to link it as a goal that we measure instead of revenue. So since we can establish that that revenue forecast is equivalent to a synthetic pesticides avoided goal, that's the number we report at our quarterly meetings internally. So it's just embedded in our DNA.
For Red Gold, it's much like Christy said, it's who we are, and I meet with our owners once a week and on sustainability and where we are and what we can do better. And it's, being able to see it in a format that we can report it out, not just to our customers, but to be able to, for our ownership to see it in, instead of just a big spreadsheet or being able to say, just tell it, for them to be able to see it is a huge drive for them, and it's important to them, and it's really keeps it front of mind for them. It's, they can go in and they can look at it themselves. And yeah, I really don't have to do a lot of work to keep it in front of them and to keep it moving. It's now that we've teamed with HowGood, it's accessible to them if they choose to, and then it's made it an important topic.
Yeah, I would just add a quick comment that economic uncertainty is a great place for sustainability to shine, right? So our CFO and our whole executive team, we have regular meetings on sustainability, but when we're doing quarterly results, always giving them some kind of win or success or something we're doing in sustainability, some data that they can show, is either highlighting or helping to highlight economic success, or it's demonstrating that we're a well-run company when the financial numbers don't quite hit the mark. And so in that regard, we've partnered really well with the executive team and keep them informed of what's going on. So
awesome. Thank you all. I'd like to maybe double down on this topic a little bit further. So it sounds like all of your organizations are more or less pretty supportive of the sustainability initiatives that you're undertaking. But I would love to hear from each of you potentially some advice that you would give to a sustainability team of one who is maybe eager to get additional support or resources to execute on their strategies, but they're struggling to make that case internally for the ROI. If you didn't necessarily have that executive buy-in from the top down, what would be some advice you would give to those folks?
yeah, I mean, I guess the common advice I would give to most people in that situation is follow the math, right? So I think it would be easy to drown in initiatives, but you've got to look at what's going to bring value to your organization and where. So you can't, let's just use carbon footprint as an example, right? You're not going to suggest, for us, we've got 55 manufacturing sites around the globe, something like that. To reduce my carbon footprint, 25%, I wouldn't recommend investing in every site trying to reduce 25%. I would look at the math and said, if I invested in these 3 or 4 facilities, I can get to 25% globally by making that investment, right? So I think sometimes sustainability feels overwhelming to the executive team, right? Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if you can boil that down to math and make it simple and start with small wins, I think you get the small wins and then you get more credibility to build. And that's where you get the executive team to start investing. So that's what I would do, is look at the math, keep it simple, keep your focus narrow, because it's really easy to get stretched and kind of drown in initiatives. And that's exactly what you don't want to happen, is You want to be really great at a few things to start with and not be okay at a lot of things.
Awesome.
I would just mention, and I think Brian alluded to this, make friends with the marketing team. They are in search of stories, and the data, you know, is a story. So if you can work closely with them, the consumer, particularly the young consumer, cares about a brand's intention. It's what's driving their interest, what's driving their purchasing. So like work with them, work closely with them to kind of orchestrate what's the story that we want to tell about why we exist in this world. Like, what are we here to do that no one else can do as well as we can? And for us, it was about soil and crafting a narrative around why soil matters. And this data just proves that point. But ultimately, it's our brand team that is telling the story and looking for tools that, you know, shape that story and give people visuals and give something for people to hang on to.
And just to add on it, to keep your CEO, CFO, in our case, our family ownership, engaged and to want to grow the area. A lot of ours, the customers drive, and you know, you want to be able to provide your customers what they want when they want it, and in a uniform manner. So I know our ownership is very engaged with our customers. So, and it's important to them to be able to make our customers happy, to give them what they want, because in the end, that's you know, that's what the consumer wants. And that's, you know, that's what keeps us all in business. So yeah, just stay engaged with your customer and help your C-suite team stay engaged with what customers want and what they're asking for. And
Awesome tips. Thank you all. I think we have time for one last question, and this is a bit of a two-pronged question. So how much, if ever, does the leadership team ask about the methodology behind the data you're presenting them with? And then the second question is, how often do you get that from consumers or customers? So the question is, on the methodology, how often is your leadership asking for it? And how often are consumers or customers asking to see that?
so our customers ask for it on a regular basis. And our ownership asks about it very often. We want to make sure as a company that we're giving the best information, the most accurate information that we can. So, and consistency. And that's what HowGood has allowed us to be able to do, and you know, with really without having to think about it. You know, we're very confident that, you know, the data the data and information we're getting from HowGood is going to be, you know, very granular from the beginning. It's going to be very consistent. It's going to meet all the standards that are required of the industry and of customers, and you know, ultimately the consumer. So it's often.
I'll jump in. The C-suite writ large doesn't actually inquire that much about the methodology. We do have a pretty deep, on our impact page of our website, consumer facing, but pretty deep explanation, and goes into methodology. But it has come up from our ops team, the food scientist people. They are very, they're scientists, they're very exacting. And in some cases, we've had the HowGood team come in and get really granular with them to make sure they feel confident about the methodology and the data. And it has been a game changer because it's like minds and just mad respect for one another. So the HowGood reputation, I think, really helps us cement that confidence. But when questions have arisen, they've brought in members of their team to explain how we got to those to that data. I will also add that our pouring partners, what we do, we'll work with our sales team so we can do some research ahead of time if we're pitching a new account. Look and see what is it that's driving their sustainability goals. If it's a carbon emissions, we can calculate the impact of the product and SKUs they'll be purchasing, and we can, estimate what their impact might be for the coming year if they were to work with us. And that really seems to spark a lot of conversation, and in some cases really advances the us closing that pouring partner.
Yeah, I would say our customers ask for that methodology a lot, and because of that, our executive team has an interest as well. So in a lot of top to tops with our most strategic customers, sustainability is a big topic of focus. And so for that reason, our executive team has a desire to understand the mechanisms as well.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Well, that we've basically hit time. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. Special thanks to Brian, Christy, and Sandra. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and for hopefully, inspiring some conversations with anyone on this call. If we haven't got around to any of your questions, we'll reach out. Feel free to reach out if you want to. If you have any more questions for anyone on the call or for HowGood. As always, keep an eye out for any further webinars coming from the HowGood team. There's a new series coming up in the next few months. And here's the contact message. But yeah, please, have a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you on the next one.